Love finances the other F word and want to support the show? Become a patron by going to patreon.com/FTOFW. You'll get special features, a shout out on the air, and early releases. Or if you prefer, pick up some merchandise at financestheotherfword.com.
As fantastic a CFP as Mel O is, as wonderful an attorney as I am, and as good as Stormy is at whatever it is he does, please do note that anything said in our podcasts are our opinions alone and are not meant to be taken as financial or legal advice.
Welcome to Finances, the Other F Word, a Gen Xer podcast for musicians and music lovers, where we discuss money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. Here are your hosts, Zoe Terry, attorney at large, Stormy Andrews, founder of Yokel Local Marketing, and Mel O, certified financial planner and author of Finances, the Other F Word. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, guys. Ooh, sorry, puppies. I clapped my hands and all my dogs are freaking out. They're all over my desk right now. Hey guys, welcome to Finances Other F Word. And today we actually had planned a nice little fun episode that wasn't going to cost me a lot of time to research and was going to be all light and fun as our last part of Bitcoin is dropping today. And then there's a whole bunch of shit going on in Texas right now, which may or may not be better by the time you guys hear this, but I had to research it because one of the big things with Bitcoin is that it's deregulated and it's decentralized currency, and the power grid in Texas is also deregulated. See what I did there? See?
Oh, good. Look at you.
No, fucking like, hey, you know what? That's my voice, Stormy. I don't know if a lot of people want to try to copy that, but that's my voice. So don't is what the fuck I'm saying. This is going to be
quite clear.
Listeners, I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but just understand that this is going to come up constantly during this episode because Mel's on one right now, and I'm so fucking be prepared, bros and gals, bros and
brosettes,
brosifs, brotato chips. Okay, hilarious. Okay, but before we get started, just to kind of set the mood for what the fuck is going on in Texas right now, Zoe, would you like to start us off?
Yes, well, for any of you who don't know, Texas is in the middle of winter storms like they have not seen since 1880, according to the news that I watched this morning. Snowstorms, which have caused hundreds of thousands of people, millions, I think even, to be without power and water. And this is obviously awful, but it hasn't stopped several high-profile people from causing a kerfuffle, as they do. First of all, former mayor of Colorado City in Texas, Tim Boyd, apparently told people that they needed to sink or swim and basically fend for themselves. He wrote a Facebook post on Tuesday, I quote, "If you don't have electricity, you step up and come up with a game plan to keep your family warm and safe." He then went on, "The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing," in capital letters. Now, this is the mayor of Colorado City in Texas. The Facebook post was later deleted, but not before it was republished by local media stations and newspapers. Boyd claimed that he was writing as a citizen as he was no longer mayor because he'd resigned without any notice. But people, I mean, what difference that makes, I don't know. But people checking the website found that he was still listed as mayor. And Boyd went on to claim that he was referring to folks who are too lazy to get up and fend for themselves, but are capable, and not for the elderly or anyone in true need of help. So,
if we're fucking freezing, does this guy think that you're not like, there's lazy, but when you're fucking freezing, like You know what that doesn't make any damn sense. Like, oh, I'm freezing to death, but I'm too lazy to do anything. Like, that's motherfucking lazy. If you think people are really that lazy, you know what I mean?
I need to
And what?
teach him about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes, you do. Oh,
No, I was just laughing.
wasn't that?
You know what? I'm gonna teach him Maslow's. I'm gonna go teach him Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna teach you this, and then just go ahead and copy exactly what I say.
I was gonna say, I think you should, because that would be his voice, and so that's very important. Anyway, go ahead, Zoe. Still,
I just
it's not getting less. Go ahead.
I just wonder what game plan he was. Well, I've heard that people are now burning their own belongings to keep warm. So I guess that's a good.
Wait, when you say they're burning their own belongings, you mean like they're burning their furniture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good game plan. I mean, that's what Tim Boyd had in mind. Then good on him. Good. Then yeah. But he was saying that as a citizen because he resigned like 2 days before or something. So not as a mayor.
I'm saying that as a, because
yes,
no longer mayor, because that's really what it sounds like. And our British person is the one who's supposed to use that word, because it's less offensive when she does it in an English accent than when I say it in an American accent, which I never said the word until I started hanging out with Zoe, because you guys don't understand this, but Zoe says this once every 4 words is the C word. So
you never said it before me, because you say it an awful lot.
Because of you.
Oh, wow. What a great influence I am.
You're a horrible influence as you smartly drink your water, which will still probably make you belch. And then what else?
Oh, and then one of my favorite people of all times, Ted Cruz, who I have to say, I was thinking about him, trying not to vomit. Since he's grown all that facial hair, don't you think he looks a bit like a poor man's Wolverine?
Oh, absolutely. He definitely looks like, because, and I'm glad he's grown. Yeah, absolutely. I won't even go into that.
Well, you're glad he's grown a beard because he looks slightly less
creepy,
ugly and creepy. But
yeah,
now
he looks very creepy to me.
He is not an attractive man.
Yeah,
in
the
any
beard
way,
definitely
shape,
helps.
It helps, but he does look, like I said, like your poor man's Wolverine. Anyway, Ted Cruz, state senator for Texas, headed for Cancun with his wife for a vacation in the midst of all this fucking, millions of people.
It was planned.
It was planned. It'd been planned for a while, but he flew from Houston to Mexico. And when he got to Houston airport, no less, he demanded a police escort through, because the police have got nothing better to do in the middle of all this fucking, hoo-ha, demanded a police escort through the airport on Wednesday, while the rest of Texas is literally freezing to death. And I believe 20 people have died so far. After telling Texans to just stay home in a radio interview on Monday, he decided that wasn't for him, not for the Wolverine and his family. He jumped on a jet to fly off to Cancun. And it caused such a hoo-ha that he's now returning this afternoon instead of Saturday. Yeah, instead of Saturday's planned. He's going to pop back a little bit early instead.
That's nice.
Yeah. So just crazy.
I like him more and more. That was very nice of him.
Yeah, nice of him. He just went, left Wednesday, came back Thursday. But
it's also nice is that this whole time I'm listening to you and I hear Stormy just working and clicking his mouse away the whole time you're talking, like we're not in the middle of recording or anything.
I think he's probably fact checking, because he likes to fact check me as if I'm like a Trump.
He's fact checking really fast.
Was he watching porn again?
I don't know. Maybe.
Either way.
But Either way, we can't hear you now.
Okay, but they're my little
Pornhub is free now.
Oh, Pornhub. Have I told you that my eldest son just insists on wearing a beanie that says Pornhub at all times?
I like it.
Yeah, but to the most inappropriate of places. But there you go. Pornhub.
He's got to find his voice. He's got to find his voice.
Yeah,
found it.
Maybe
found it.
He's trying on other people's voices and thinking that it's their voice, and going to change, and then realize that that's stupid and they should have their own voice, right? Okay.
Maybe, but he's only 17, so you could probably let that slide.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
he was just 17. And you know what I mean.
Well
That's all I
done.
know.
What song is that?
And da 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 da. I fell
I
in
never
love
had
with
with another
another.
girl. She was
Oh,
only
yeah,
17
When I saw him standing, I'll never dance with
with another Alan. Yeah.
saw him standing there.
God,
Okay,
we are so good, Stormy. We should think about maybe
guys were fucking
releasing
awful.
an
It took me
album.
like
Yeah,
4
we should.
verses for me to even catch the beat. That's awful.
Yeah.
Don't be
Okay.
a hater because we got this.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean,
We
you
all
know, as soon as we finish, she'll start like
Yeah.
trying to do it herself.
No, she's going to try and sing songs the same way we sing them.
I know.
Right. I love your voice, so I'm just going to copy it if that's cool. And
That's cool.
you know, and now
Sure.
your voice is going to become my voice because that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. So you could do you see
I see.
what I told you?
Yeah.
That's when Mel's about to go Mel. So I'm like trying to calm down. So let's get into this before I get much attitude. So like I said, we're going to be talking
Wait. Zoe was still telling us we just got a little sidetracked. You know, he came back on Thursday.
No,
came
he's
back a day
coming
early.
back this afternoon. So hopefully he's back. Texas can breathe a sigh of relief because I'm sure he's going to be out there handing out water, you know, helping
Ice
with
cubes.
foods. Ice cubes, probably, and not
Stormy,
shacked up somewhere
for
warm.
people who work. So, you know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. What am I thinking?
But yeah, so I just think that just sums up the Wolverine.
Hey, but you know what? Here's the
Walmart
cool thing about
Wolverine.
Ted Cruz. I just got to tell you, here's the cool thing
Is
about it.
there something?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. See,
Okay.
because when California was having their issues,
Mm-hmm.
he
Which-
was like, they've got it. What's that?
I said what you're going to talk about. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, were you about to go into the California and Florida?
No. I'm just going to briefly mention it. So, but go ahead. No.
Okay, yeah. So it was kind of cool, you know, because when California was having their woes with the rolling blackouts because of the fires,
Mm-hmm.
he was talking lots of shit. I mean, lots of shit. Like, they need to get their shit together. They ain't got nothing. So someone called him out on it, and he said, "I have no excuse." Whoa. Then, yeah, because there was nothing he could say because he got called out on it. They because he posted on Twitter, and then I don't know if he said anything about Florida because when Florida got hit. And with one of the hurricanes, he was like, well, we shouldn't be sending federal money to help them get out of their shit. Oh, but I'm sure Texas is going to want it. Ted Cruz. What a yes.
That should be you should be his speechwriter.
I
when
should.
He campaigns again. Seriously, Stormy, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. You should do that.
And I'll be the person that what's it called? Brushes and combs
Brushes
his
his
beard.
beard.
I think his beard looks like shit.
Oh,
Have you seen him without it?
Yes.
oh, he is so
Oh, yeah.
creepy.
He needs the beard.
Anything that covers any part of his face is a good thing. Now, if he could wear a balaclava, that would be a better look.
Why do you always bust out these words that I've never heard before? I understand by your hand movements what it is, but I'm like, seriously, do you just sit around and read the sources all day? Like,
I'm English. We have like a million words to your one. So yeah.
Look, fuck.
What you call them ski masks, I think. But
Okay.
that's not right because balaclavas can be used for bank robberies, for scaring people, for Ted Cruz's facial problems. So balaclava is the actual word. Thank you and good night.
Yes, good job, mic drop. I'll stick with fuck and motherfucker because that's my voice. That's my voice.
Oh, it's a good voice. I'd like to
It's
try
a good
it.
voice. It's a good voice.
Yeah. It's okay. Seriously, like I'm getting really pissed off, you guys.
Texas. Let's talk about Texas.
Let's
How
Let's
they
talk about
doing?
Texas. We want to have a conversation about Texas.
I want to have one about Texas too because that's the only way I'm not gonna. Oh, of course.
Ah,
So, Kitsune, stop, baby girl. Okay.
So what's going on in Texas?
So fucking
a
Texas.
bit chilly,
Texas
bit
is
nippy.
a bit chilly. So let's, but you know the thing with Texas, they have their own voice. So I'm proud of that. Good on them, Texas. Okay.
And they have their own power system.
They do. Hey,
That's not
nice
their
segue.
own grid.
That's right. So let's seriously get into Texas. I'm probably gonna have to edit half the shit out because we're at 27 minutes already and we haven't done anything.
Oh, I think I have. I think I've been quite entertaining, but
I think
move
so
on.
too, Zoe.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Well, okay. So Zoe was entertaining. Stormy's been clicking away on his mouse, and I'm trying to not lose my absolute shit while they antagonize me. So here we go. So this is not historically speaking for Texas. Of course, we know that there's grid and a winter storm and there's a whole bunch of shit show going on. We're going to talk a little bit about the deregulation and how it happened, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, they had another snowstorm in December of 1989, which is a big deal because it was the very first time that they resorted to rolling blackouts. And the 1989 storm, the wind chills reached 14 degrees below zero with the wind chill. 14 degrees below zero. I don't think it's that cold time, but that's cold as fucking. I don't even want to ever feel 14 degrees below zero. Anyway, so back in 1989, power plants failed or they could not, generate at full capacity. And a lot of them, as now, can't even start. And so at that time, the storm forced regulators to try to, to make recommendations to winterize all of the power plants. And at this time, it had not been decentralized. So this was just the normal utility company. And in 1999, the Texas lawmakers, and this is what I thought was interesting because I was wondering, did the citizens of Texas vote to decentralize the utility company? But it wasn't them. It was the Texas lawmakers. So the lawmakers decided, for whatever reason, probably lobbied by power people who are hoping to get into the space to get decentralized. So in February of 2011, or so in 1999, they decentralized. But in February 2011, there was another Arctic cold front that put temperatures below freezing for 4 days. And of course, it was also disastrous. And equipment and instruments froze, also shutting down power plants and having rolling blackouts. And at that time, in February of 2011, it caused 4 million people to lose power. And federal regulators came in and warned Texas that its power plants could not produce reliable electricity in bitterly cold conditions. This is in 2011. You can see how great that they followed that. And so they recommended that they start insulating their heat pipes and do other things to winterize the plant, which obviously never got done. So the 2011 analysis issued by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the North American Electric Reliability Corporation recommended that they heed to these reliability standards, and they had noted that some of the same equipment that had failed in 1989 had failed in 2011 because they had never changed anything. They had never done any of the winterizations. And so out of all this deregulation, we find that there was a state law that was enacted in 2011 requiring power companies to disclose their weatherization efforts. But then after that, they did not mandate any further precautions. And so basically, from the report, they're quoted as saying these recommendations were not mandatory, and over the course of time, implementation lapsed. And many of the generators that experienced outages in 1989 failed again in 2011. And now, of course, we're in 2021. I'm assuming the generators have been replaced at this point because those would be some old fucking generators. But here we are still in the same situation. And so what we had in 1999, Texas lawmakers decided to vote to deregulate the utilities plant and allow privatization to come into the space. And that's where we get the creation of ERCOT, which is in the news a lot lately because people are pissed at them. The ERCOT stands for Electric Reliability Council of Texas, and it is an independent system operator for the region. And its whole job is to manage the flow of electric power to Texas customers. And they represent about 90% of the state's electoral load. So basically, that's what they're in control of. And they basically schedule power on the electronic grid. And they are under their control. They connect more than 46,500 miles of transmission lines, and then about 680 generation units. So this is all falls under the ERCOT control. So in addition to that, ERCOT performs financial settlements for wholesale bulk power, and also it does the administration between retail clients who switch from power company to power company. And we're going to talk about that. And it is a 501c4 nonprofit corporation, and it's basically governed by a board of directors, and they have oversight by the Public Utilities Commission of Texas and the Texas legislator. And on the board is consumers, cooperatives, generators, power marketers, retail electric providers, investor-owned electric utilities, transmission and distribution providers, and municipally owned electro utilities. And going into this storm, ERCOT knew that they would be under production by 25%, even without the storm coming in, and knowing how bad it would get. And so there's a couple things when we're looking at what happened with what is happening as of the time of this recording in Texas right now, if I can find my voice, in Texas right now, is the fact that there's, if you hate wind energy, then you're going to say it's all the wind energy fault. And if you hate big oil, you're going to say it's all the oil's fault. But in actuality, it's everybody's fucking fault. So let's just look at shale real quick. So shale oil is found by fracking. Fracking is where you put, water into the ground, or you pull the rocks out, and then you frack it at an off location. But you use the water and other means to break apart the minerals in the rock to be able to pull the shale oil out of it. And it's, a lot of you guys might remember when the water was on fire, when people were lighting their water on fire, it was caused because of all of the fracking that was going on at the time. And 2008 fracking became a really big deal because of the simple fact that we had oil running off the charts, and we were in the middle of a recession, and people were just fracking their asses off because they were trying to get in on the greed. And so when they pull the matter out of the shale rock, they can use it as immediately as fuel, or they can upgrade it and do, other refined fuels like gasoline and such. And if you guys remember the Men Who Built America episode, when Rockefeller, he was noticing that from his kerosene, that the byproduct was gasoline, and they were dumping it into the rivers. And so what he did was he told his staff, hey, find a use for this product. And they came up with the engine. And so I just thought I just wanted to tie that in because I still love that series. It was fantastic. So they decentralized the power grid, and January 1st, 2007, they called for the creation of the Electronic Utilities Restructuring Legislative Oversight Committee to basically implement the bill over an amount of 7 years. And so in areas that deregulated Texas, Texas, there's some parts that are deregulated, and then there's other parts that aren't. So if they voted to not be deregulated, then they are still on a normal utility company. And then there's parts of Texas that did actually say, no, we want to go with a different retail electric provider. And so what happened is that you have some people that are by the traditional utilities, and some that are by these private companies. And then, so since 2002, approximately 85% of the commercial and industrial consumers have switched power providers at least once. And then 40% of the residential consumers in deregulated areas have switched from the former utility to these privatization companies. And then, so according to a 2014 report for Texas, they said that and this is kind of interesting when you look at the stats. So the Texas Coalition for Affordable Power, TCAP, is quoted as saying in a 2014 report that deregulation cost Texans about $22 billion from 2002 to 2012, and residents in the deregulated market pay prices that are considerably higher than those who live in parts of the states that are regulated. And then the U.S. Energy Information Administration turned around and published its state electric prices. And it showed that actually that Texas electric price did not rise above, it initially rose over the actual dollar amount of the national average, but then it dropped below what the national average was. So what we have is we have deregulation come on, and we have private companies trying to build infrastructure and figure it all out, and their prices actually go up. And then what happens is that we get a couple of years into it, and they get a good cruise going. And then we see that the national average for Texans for electricity is about 17% lower. And so what happened is that now you have privatization, and then you have a whole bunch of people who are competing for the same clients. And so what you see that everybody's trying to undercut everybody. The problem is that the margins on utilities is very low already. So there's a couple utilities companies that were coming in, and they were offering utility customers, basically unlimited free energy on the weekends, which is some crazy shit. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
Isn't that fucking nuts? Yeah, it's like a credit card phone crazy plan. Like, hey, if you do this, we'll do XYZ, which is just absolutely nuts to me. And so what happened is that the like I said, the less regulated providers, they came in, and the parts that were still the traditional utility companies that were regulated, they ended up being able to undercut them. And what happened is that since it's such a small, they can only cut, because of the margins are so thin already, kind of like on a grocery store, they can only cut in little tiny parts at a time. So it took a very long time to actually get it to where the national average for the Texas price dropped, because of the fact that the increments that it moved down with was so much smaller. And so what we see is as of today, at the time of this recording, that we see that Occidental Petroleum has cut its deliveries. Chevron has shut down some wells. And we're starting to see shit happen in the commodity section, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And then, of course, we have the wind turbines have frozen due to freezing rain, and natural gas shortages are happening as well. And as of the date of this recording, there's still no promises of when the power will be restored. However, there are starting to bring more of them online. And of course, power plants were still not fully weatherized. And not only were they not fully weatherized, ERCOT is catching heat, because in the wintertime, typically with Texas, is that there's plants that generate electricity, but usually on the wintertime, they can close them because people don't use that much electricity. And so when ERCOT saw the forecast and knew that the cold front was coming in, they didn't open those plants back up and get them producing electricity. And so the deal is that when the actual freeze hit, not only, the fact that it's amplified by the fact that people are using more, but it's also because these plants are still closed, because typically in the wintertime they're closed. And so we have a whole bunch of stuff happening all at once. So shale wells. So it depends on, like I said, if you're a conservative, you're saying, big oil is the only way to go. If you're a tree hugger, you're saying, no, it's the wind turbines. Well, the wind turbines got frozen up by freezing rain. Then the wind.
But here's a scenario. They make wind turbines that can withstand the super cold weather. They have them in super cold states that get a lot colder than Texas, that deal with freezing rains, but Texas didn't use them.
I know, we're getting there.
Oh.
So thank you. That's it. Thank you for the foreshadow of what's come. Good job, Stormy. Good job. So shale wells are experiencing freeze off. So basically what happens is that the water in the pipes are actually freezing. And so they're not being able to get the oil out of there to help with the energy crunch. And then on top of that, even if they can get it out, what's happening is if they're successful in doing it, when the wastewater is whisked away, then it's freezing in the pipes anyway. And so there's nothing that they can do. And of course, as Stormy has alluded to, the Texas's power grid is isolated from the other ones of the United States. And the reason why they're not connected to it is because whether it's the privatization lobbying Texas legislator or whatever, they did not want to be attached to anybody else in the United States, because of the simple fact that they were afraid that would make them fall under federal regulations. And so nobody can send them any help, because they wanted to be by themselves and unregulated. And so basically everybody's pissed. And so what happens is that there was, in addition to the fact that there was these other plants that were closed that were not brought online because it's wintertime and they're typically not, there was also facilities that had stored a lot of some of the electricity that they had made, that ERCOT did not call them up to say, hey, we need your excess to be able to put it out to the grid. So everything was like a little bit too late. And now what we're seeing is whether it's, the turbines or whether it's the oil drilling, more so in specific, is that we're seeing that everything is frozen. And there's a big concern with the instruments being frozen, with pipes being burst, with the hydraulics being bad, so that even if it was to all fall out tomorrow, and they're supposed to get warmer weather this weekend, and I hope that they do. But even then, everything's not going to end up coming online right away, because they have to make sure that it's safe for everybody to work on, especially if you're talking about these big oil drills where they use a lot of the hydraulics. And so what ended up happening over this 4-day stint since February 15th, when the cold front moved into Texas, is that there's a cap on ERCOT has a cap as far as like how much it could cost, and the power price is capped out at $9,000 a megawatt hour.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Oklahoma here in a minute too. And so there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, the wind power is what fucked us up. The wind power messed us up, and that's why we need big oil. Well, the deal is that in Texas, that wind turbines represent less than 13% of the energy that's produced, and gas producers represent 35%. And it doesn't really matter because they all failed anyway. And as to Stormy's point, the recommendations that were told to them to be able to weatherize was steps that were already been taken in other power plants with wind farms and in the colder climates like Norway and Canada, but they just didn't do it because they don't have any, they know that there's no penalty if they don't do it. And of course, they're going to roll the dice and play the odds. And unfortunately, a lot of Texans lost. And so there is in the East Coast of the United States, and when they run capacity tests on energy generation plants to make sure that they can either run at a capacity in like an extremely cold or hot day, to make sure that they would be able to store energy and all these things. And if they don't do it, and if they don't pass these capacity tests, then they have stiff penalties. But of course, Texas just left it up to the private sector. And I'm all about, free market and everything like that. But as I'm doing this research, when we talked about this on the privatization of prisons, and there's a clause that we're going to come across here in a second that we mentioned in the Supreme Court, the economics of the Supreme Court. It's like, is there some things that need to be regulated by the government, period? And I mean, I feel bad for the Texans. I feel really bad for the below poverty line people in Texas, because that's gotta fucking suck. And in the apartment buildings, a whole bunch of people's pipes are bursting and just flooding fucking everything. So if you're already cold as balls in your apartment, and then the damn thing floods, then where the fuck are you gonna go? You can't even be inside. You know what I mean?
You just got to come up with a game plan. Yeah, exactly. Go to Cancun or come up with a game plan. Think outside the box.
Absolutely. Think outside the box. Got to be creative. Think outside the box and go to Cancun.
You know what? I like that. And I like it because you said it in your voice. So I said it in Zoe's. Oh, okay. All right. So Zoe.
Could you not?
They need to go to Cancun. They need to go to Cancun.
Sorry. Did I suddenly become Indian?
I can't. I have one accent for everybody. I have one accent for everyone because I just can't pull them off.
Too. I can't. Every accent I have is British.
Best British accent not that I've ever heard. Do I
They need to go to Cancun?
Please don't ever try to do my voice again.
Okay.
That is so bad. Bless you. Do carry on, Mel, because I need to. Yeah, I take it back, and I'm going to try and erase that from my memory.
And yeah, that was pretty horrible. And so actually, I'm sorry, I had stated a little bit ago that the cold front moved in on February 15th, but it actually didn't move in on February 15th. It actually moved in last Friday. So almost a week from the time that we're recording this. And then that's when they were told, hey, you need to start conserving energy. But this is the thing that fucking freaked me out. So physical gas prices in Oklahoma soared from $4 the week prior to $500 per million British thermal units, and as of Tuesday of this week, it was at $1,000.
Oh wait, can you say it again? Because I don't know if I understood.
Yeah, so it was $4 per million British thermal units.
Okay, BTU. So for BTUs,
right? It was $4.
$4 for
in Oklahoma before the storm hit.
For residents.
For I I don't know I'm assuming if it's per millions, this would be on a wholesale level.
Okay, they were paying $4 for BTUs.
A million
A million BTUs.
per million, right? BTUs. And then when the weather came in, it was 500. It went to $500.
Okay.
Okay. And then as of Tuesday, it topped out at $1,000.
Wow.
And this is going to become important when we start talking about how Texas's winter storm is affecting the commodities market and starting to rocket right now. So basically, you know, we have about 490.
Why is that affecting Oklahoma, being that Texas is on their own system? Why would that make Oklahoma go up?
Well, I think I can answer that question, and I think it would be because of the supply and demand, which is what's happening in the commodity market with Texas, everything Texas is going through right now. And so the thing is that you have so Texas produces a fuck ton of energy, you guys. Like, I mean, for the United States, we'll talk here in a minute about how much oil and other things that they actually produce. And because of the deregulation, there was a lot of wind farms that were able to come in there and set up, and so. But what happens is that now Texas it's bad for Texans right now, but it's also bad for the United States on a greater level because of the simple fact is it's that there's a higher demand on the United States front. And a lot of that came out of Texas. So I'm assuming that's probably why Oklahoma is experiencing higher BTU prices. And so that left about 490,000 homes and businesses in the state without electricity. And, you know, power plants have been slowly coming online, and that 490,000 number is still a lot, but it's down from 3 million. And so there's still, you know, ice damage to the grid in Texas. And then they also brought one of their nuclear power plants in South Texas online. And so they're producing and they're feeding electricity to the grid to try to get it to balance out. And it's slowly coming back. So in all of this, Mexico, their state-run Federal Commission of Electricity they're in the same time crunch. So we have natural gas flows that Texas has produced that are not producing. So then that's forcing Mexico, which is the closest country to it, are also starting to experience the same thing. So their government has stepped up and they have bought 2 huge cargoes that they've divulged at this time of liquefied natural gas to try to offset their rolling blackouts, because the energy that they've been getting from Texas, they're not getting right now either. And so 89,000 Mexicans are currently without power as of Wednesday because of the natural gas shortage. And on top of all this, we have telecommunication providers that have outages throughout all Texas, affecting almost 280,000 wireless users as of mid-morning of Wednesday, which was yesterday at the time of this recording. And they're trying to figure it out. And then you have the power outages that are forcing the communication service providers to try to rely on backup power. The problem is that the roads are so icy that it's making it hard for people to get to the generators to refuel them. And so we have this like fucking shitstorm of everything that's going on. And another problem that we have happening with all of this is that even if the oil producers could start producing oil again, they actually rely on electricity to run their pumps, and that electricity comes from the grid. So it's like this round robin of just bullshit where everything is just kind of playing off everything else. And then what this is doing to the commodities market right now. So we've talked about commodities multiple times on the podcast. Commodities is the same anywhere you buy it. So if you buy an orange in Florida or an orange in Washington State, that's a commodity. An orange is an orange. And so the state gas stockpiles are undergoing maximum withdrawal. Like they're just going out as much as they can. And Texas produces more gas than any other state, and it outputs about 23 billion cubic feet a day. This was before the deep freeze. And that represents about a quarter of total production for the lower 48 states. And then its liquefied natural gas export terminals consumed about 4 billion cubic feet a day of gas before the polar blast. So you have just this massive energy making machine of Texas, and everybody's kind of in bed together using each other's energy. And then what ended up happening is that this cold front came in and U.S. oil production plunged by 40%. and all fracking has stopped because they can't do it because it keeps freezing in the pipes. And so what that has done is we're seeing that oil prices are now surging because we have two things that happen. We have the winter onset that's happening in Texas right now, that's cut off production for most of the United States. And then on top of that, Saudi Arabia has cut back their production for February and March timeframe, which seems like that might be a little bit on purpose for them to take advantage of the fact that it's very expensive. But in actuality, they were going to do this. They had put this in motion a couple months ago. It just happens that now it's happening at this timing. So we have Texas not producing the U.S. oil supply. We have Saudi Arabia is also not producing as much oil, which means that we have a supply and demand that's out of whack on the market. And we're seeing that oil is just starting to go through the roof. And so with all of this deep freeze, besides the fact that we have people in their homes and that are freezing and trying to stay warm, we also have other commodities that are going to be affected, like grapefruit. So what we're having is, because of this snap that's coming through, is that we're seeing that we're seeing the grapefruit, the supply of grapefruit has just been completely wiped out, as much as 60%. So we've had this freeze come in, and now there's going to be a shortage coming into summertime, because one of the things that they export heavily in Texas is ruby reds. That's what they're known for. And typically in a season, they produce 200,000 tons of grapefruit in a season, followed closely by Florida, which is 196,000 tons. But because of everything that has happened with this winter, they are expecting 60% of the grapefruit coming out of Texas to be completely wiped out. And then on top of that, there's late season Valencia oranges that are also projected to be destroyed as well. So what that means is, if you're going to be in the grocery store, then if you're going to be looking at the grapefruits, are going to be very, very costly. But the bigger effect for Texas is the fact of all of the exporters who are, banking on, and this is how they make their living, is taking these products to market, and they're going to be gone. So while it might be more expensive for somebody to buy grapefruit in Washington, and that's a minor inconvenience, it could be very devastating for the people in Texas who rely on this stuff. But the good news is that the owner of the Cowboys, billionaire Jerry Jones, he's making a fuck ton of money because his company Comstock Resources is able to sell gas from its Shell plant in East Texas and northern Louisiana at premium prices back to Texas. So in case you guys were worried about him,
I was a little bit, to be honest.
I was.
He's gonna be just fucking fine.
Right.
You know what? He might be in Cancun. And the thing that I don't understand about Cruz, you're a fucking senator. Can't you get a personal plane? Like, I mean, the thing is that you want to go to fucking Cancun. You can't, like, what a dick move. Like, just, you can't do that shit quietly. Get on a fucking private plane, fly to Cancun, fucking do whatever you're going to do, beat yourself off, beat your wife off, whatever, and then fly back into the radar. No, you make a big fucking stink with the police escort through the middle of a fucking airport when people are freezing their balls off. And I mean, and then you have, what, dude, like, how fucking douchey is that? But there is a little bit of nice things that are coming out of this, is that there are South Padre Island residences who have been rescuing sea turtles because...
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, the sea turtles are basically freezing to death. And so they've brought them all into a convention center, and residents who don't have heat themselves are going out and picking up these little tiny sea turtles and bringing them into the convention center, and they're kind of all laying about.
They're sticking them in the back of their minivans and driving them to safety. It's so sweet.
It is super sweet. I mean, you're gonna, you're freezing to death, and you're gonna get in your car and get on icy roads to save sea turtles. Like, seriously, Texas, that's after my heart. That's just amazingly adorable. And once they got the energy back on in the convention center, they were able to raise it up to 60 degrees so that they think the turtles are going to be able to survive, because I guess that's kind of their minimum. And then they're going to try to release them back in the wild, but they are expecting to lose a great deal of them. But so this is the thing. Out of all of this little jaunt through everything that's happening to the Texas grid, is a couple things that were brought to my mind, is the fact that when we're looking at, does everything have the right to be privatized? So this was brought up on the prisons episode, where we talked about the privatization of prisons and how they started cutting corners. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go back. But basically they did some side hustle bullshit, and they privatized them, and they started contracting out with food companies that were shit, and they were feeding incarcerated people food with maggots in it and a variety of different stuff. And this came out of privatization, and I was not against the privatization of prisons until I started reading on it, and then I thought maybe I don't like that. But this is the thing, that if you have a private company with electricity and everything shot up, and I'm assuming, I don't know if they're going to keep the existing rates that they had prior to the storm, and they're going to eat the cost, which I have a feeling that they're probably not going to do. So if you're in the middle of a COVID pandemic and a lot of people are still unemployed, now you have the agriculture in Texas that's gonna be affected in one way, shape, or form. Even the cattle ranchers are trying to keep their cattle alive because it's so fucking cold, so their livelihood's going to be affected. How are people going to be able to pay if, in the event that we're assuming that the utility companies are going to do what most companies do and pass on the burden of the extra cost to their people who are using their services? If you are already in the middle of a pandemic, how the fuck are people going to be able to pay their utility bills?
They're just going to have to, come up with a game plan, because these service providers owe them nothing.
And even if the dude in Colorado City, even if his time frame is correct, which it's not, that he quit and then he said that, why would you say something like, you're not talking about, hey, there's a bum on the corner, and why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and stop being lazy and go do something? We're talking about a fucking storm that's affected the entire fucking state. And that's the thing.
In the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
I mean,
who elects these jackasses?
I don't know.
Colorado City. If there's any listeners in Colorado City, please explain to us how this jackass even got elected in the first fucking place. And then as far as Ted Cruz, I mean, you want to talk about being inconsiderate. And this is the deal. He's not the only rich person that's doing that. There's probably a fuck ton of rich people that live in Texas. If they don't have generators, they're bailing and they're going other places.
And you know what? That's their prerogative too. They're not a government official. I'd leave too. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, but if I was an official in charge of this stuff, I have to stay. That's part of your
that's his fucking job.
More powerful. If you got the money to go, get out, more power to you. But
you do.
The politicians, those people,
he
doesn't
have
but he's never had a spine. He's a spineless dude, and that's what you expect spineless people to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I would expect a smart spineless person to get a private jet and take it out of the public eye. On that note, make sure you follow us on Finances Other F Word on social media. Follow Lily Lou Mittens on Instagram. Get Stormy's book, The World's Best Buyer Persona System, on Amazon. And then if you want to get a book written in my voice, Finances, the Other F Word, Another F Word to Love, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and Walmart online. And with that, Texas, stay as warm as you can, and we're out this bitch.
We're out. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.
Thanks for listening. If you like us, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.